I know how it feels when you are interested in sewing and you're like passionate about it. You cannot wait to start. Like you have not done it before, but it has been in your mind to start. And you have tried paying for physical classes, it's not working. You go online to search for videos that could give you that explanation that will help you understand all the steps when it comes to sewing, all the process to follow, how to put one and one together to get through. I know that feeling because I've been there. Okay, I used to be a beginner, for Christ's sake. I am still a beginner. I consider myself a beginner because every time I am learning. Every day I am learning. Okay, every day I'm learning something new about sewing because I'm passionate about it. So yeah, I know that feeling, and that is why I decided to make this video. Okay, so this particular video I'm going to be attempting to explain to you in detail how to create a basic pattern with two dots. I created a previous video where I explained how to create a basic pattern with one dot, which is the waist dot. But on this video, I am going to be explaining two dots, the waist dot and the bust dot. Okay, when I want to create pattern or I want to mark my measurement on the fabric, there are things I consider. Now, the first thing I first consider is I look at my body. Okay, yeah, I do this practically. I look at my body and I ask myself, how is the body created? How does the human body look? Okay, looking at myself, I'm asking myself this question. This is how I learned the process. Now, I realized that, yeah, the human body is made in duality. And when I mean duality, two ways, like everything is in two ways. You have the upper part of the body and you have the lower part of the body. Okay, from your waist up to your head is the upper part, and from your waist down to your feet is the lower part. Now, once you realize that, okay, there is up, there is down, the next thing you're going to realize is that the human body, be it the male or the female, has the left side of the body and also the right side of the body. And there is a center demarcating the left from the right, and this is it. Okay, the center of the human body. This is the front and this is the center of the human body. Okay, instead of looking at me, I would advise you to look at yourself. Look at this thing I'm saying. If you're a guy, you have two chests. Look at the left side and the right side. What is demarcating it? There is a middle. If you're a female, look at your left breast, look at your right breast. What is demarcating those two breasts? Is there is a line there, there is a middle. Okay, so that is the center front. I call that the center front, and that is what is demarcating the left side from the right side. Now, the next thing I consider when I'm creating a pattern or marking my measurement on the fabric is the fact that the human body has the front view, that's the front side, and also the back side. Okay, you can see that everything I've mentioned is in two. So you need to consider these things. Think about it. Okay, consider them because these are going to help you, know how to create pattern and mark measurements. So once you realize that you have the front view and the back view, this is how you create your pattern. Let's do some calculation now. Look at the front side of your body, the front view. You can see that you have the left and the right, which means you have two sides on the front view. Okay, look at it. You have the left side, which is 1, and you have the right side, which is 2. Okay, so you have two sides on the front view. Now look at your back view. If you're looking at your back view, you realize that your back view, you have the left side of the back and you have the right side of the back, and you also have the center back, a line demarcating the left from the right. That means you have two view at your back side, left, right, 2. Now we have the two view in front, we have two view in back, 1 2 1 2, which is 4. Okay, so this is 4. You have 4 sides on the human body: the left side, the right side front, the left side, the right side back, which is 4 sides. Have that in mind. Please have this number in mind, 4. So now you have that part. The next thing you go into is how do you create a pattern that looks exactly like the human body. This is how you do it. I'm going to mark the vertical measurement of my front view. So now if I want to mark my points starting from my shoulder, which is the first point, shoulder to neckline, I am going to mark all the points. I will indicate that on my pattern paper exactly how I have it. All these things I'm doing is going to be happening from the center front. Okay, so you can see this pattern paper I'm holding here. The first thing I'm going to mark on that pattern paper is a starting point, and on that starting point I'm going to mark my shoulder. You see, this is like a replica of my body, so I'm going to mark my shoulder, and then I'll mark my shoulder slope to bring down the shoulder, and then I'll go ahead to create my armhole, everything happening from here. I'll go ahead to create my armhole, and I'll mark my points, my bust points, my under bust points, my waist points, my hip points. So once I have those points, next thing I'll do is to divide my round measurement by 4. Now, why are we dividing by 4? I explained to you that the human body has 4 parts, okay? The left, right, front side, left, right, back side, left, right, which is 4 sides. Now, we divide all round measurements, which is the round bust, the round under bust, the round waist, by 4 because we're trying to mark this on one side of the pattern paper. So when I create the front pattern, I have one side of the front created. I open it, I have 2 sides. I create another back side like this as the front, and when I open the back pattern, I have 2 sides, and now when you count, you have 1, 2, the back 1, 2, which is 4, and now you have the complete human body looking exactly duplicated on your pattern paper. I don't know if you get that. What differentiates this pattern we're going to be creating now from the previous pattern is the fact that this particular pattern now is going to be having the bust dart, and what is going to help us achieve the bust dart is for you to know your front waistline and your back waistline. That is what we're going to use to create the bust dart. And with all this said, let's go create the pattern, the actual pattern. Please don't forget to like this video, and if you're new, I hope you subscribe. I hope you stick with me, and I promise to make your sewing journey easy. Yeah, so let's go into the pattern drafting. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing all the knowledge I have, okay, on this. So I will advise you to really pay attention if you want to really master everything about pattern, because mastering pattern drafting is like the main thing you need to do when it comes to fashion designing, so you can be able to, you know, twist it to what you want, you know, tamper with the pattern, change it, you know, just create your own style from understanding the basic of it. Okay, now when it comes to the bust dart, because that's what we're including to this pattern to make it different from the one I previously uploaded, the bust dart is going to be created by knowing the difference between your front waistline and your back waistline. Okay, so that is what you need to take note of. You need to take note of your front waistline, which is your waist point, and your back waist point. These two is going to be what we're going to use to determine what our bust dart will be. Okay, take note of that. And with that said, the first thing we're going to be doing on this pattern is to, first of all, I have to let you guys know that here, like this line, this place here, this pattern, this side here facing me is going to be my center front. Okay, so this is my center front pattern. Like this is my center front of the pattern, okay, and here is going to be for the side. And you already know what center front is, why we're going to be marking every measurement or every horizontal measurement from the center front in. You should know that by now, okay? And with that being said, the first thing I'm going to be doing on this pattern is I'll be marking 1 inch down from this point, and that 1 inch down is my starting line. Now, why am I indicating a starting line? So that everything I do is going to be really accurate. Okay, so I have to have like a line where I start from. I know I have been creating pattern for the longest time, and most times I don't even indicate a starting line. I'm sorry about that. I just realized that when you do things like this in steps, it makes it more easier. Okay, so creating a starting line and marking all your measurements from that starting line is necessary. Okay, let me not talk too much, but it's necessary. Okay, so this is my starting line, and on this starting line here, my shoulder measurements will be sitting on this line here. My shoulder measurement will sit here. My neck width will sit here on this line. Okay. So now you see why we had to indicate it. First thing we're going to do towards marking the measurement is, first of all, I'm going to be marking my neck width. And the standard measurement I always see for the past 3 years that I've been creating pattern, neck width, especially the normal neck width on a pattern, is 3.5 if you are my size. Okay, so take a look at me. On the introduction, you saw that girl talking. Okay, are you my size? If you're my size, the neck width we use is 3.5. If you're bigger, you can use 4 inches. Well, yeah, this is just a basic pattern. Okay, so you can use 3.5, 4 inches, up to you. So here is my 3.5 neck width. I'm going to label it. Forgive me because I'm going to be labeling almost everything, so you understand. After I have my neck width sitting on this starting line, the next measurement I'll mark in from the center front, here is the center front, is my shoulder measurement. And to do this, I'll divide my shoulder measurement by 2 and I'll mark it in. My shoulder measurement is 14. 14 divided by 2 gives you 7, and I'm marking 7 in from here. This is 7, and this is shoulder. Okay, now because my shoulder is not straight, neither is your shoulder, neither is their shoulder, or nobody, okay, nobody ever, maybe 1% in the whole 100% in this world has straight shoulders, but your shoulder is not straight, it's slopey. And to create that slope, I'll be marking 1 inch down, straight down. See, straight down from where I have my shoulder, I'll just come down by 1 inch. And I'll go ahead and connect this 1 inch slope to the neck width. Okay, like this. And here is my slope. Now you can see that the thing is falling. Now this is my center neckline falling like this to the shoulder. So now I have this. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be dividing my round armhole by 2, and I'll mark the measurement I get after dividing by 2 down from my slope. Why are we dividing the round armhole measurement by 2? You can see that your hand is attached to the front side of your body and the back side of your body. Okay, so when you get your round armhole, you divide it by 2. Half of the measurement sits at the back, half of the measurement sits in the front. So I'm marking half of it here, which is 16 divided by 2 gives you 8. And this is 8 inches down from my slope. So yeah, normally was meant to just connect this to this, but we have to confirm if the 7 inches I marked from this point in to the shoulder is the same 7 inches I have from this point in to this depth, okay, to the armhole depth. So confirming mine, see it is not, I went off, or I went 2 in, so adjust it back. 7 inches is here. Make sure it's on the same point where you marked your 8 inches, okay? And now this is the point I'm meant to connect to this point. So this is my armhole depth to my slope. I'm feeling this marker. Oh my god. So now I'll create an horizontal line here. And now this is the point where we create the armhole. Okay, did you get that? So once we are done with this, the next thing we're going to do is mark the vertical measurement. Okay, so the vertical measurement means the points on our body. Now, if I put this pattern paper straight up on my body, like if I stand it up the way I'm standing, you will notice that this is how my shoulder sits, like my shoulder to my armhole sits. Now, the next thing I see after my armhole is my bust, and then I have the under bust, and I have my waist, and I have my hip, line by line. Okay, so we're going to be marking it just the way I have it on my body standing up. I'm going to lay those measurements here. Okay, the first thing I'm going to be marking is my bust point, and place my tape here. That's where I'll place it. I'll mark my bust point 10 inches. Everything has to be labeled, okay, so everybody gets it, no matter who you are. Now the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'll mark down my under bust point. So after my nipple point, the next point is the end of my breast, which is my under bust, and that's what I'm marking here on the pattern. So please go ahead and indicate your own under bust. Mine is 13.5 down from my shoulder. So now I have my underbust point. The next thing I'll be marking is my waistline. Now my waistline is 18 inches for the front and for my back is 16.5. So please take note of the waistline measurement because the difference between the front waistline and the back waistline is what we're going to be using to create the bust that. Now see me mentioning this over and over again because I recently read where they said that if you keep measuring things, like keep saying something over and over again, it just stick to the other person listening to you. Okay, so I want you to stick to you. That's the difference between the front waistline and the back waistline is what we're going to use to create the bust that. Okay, Stephanie. So 18 inches is my waistline for the front. I don't even know why I think the reason why my front waistline is different from my back waistline is the fact that I have my breasts on the front side of my body. And you know, everybody has their breasts on the front side, and because of that bulginess, it makes the waistline different from the back. There is nothing at the back stopping your tip going straight up, okay? But the front, it has to go all the way to your bust, go down, and you know, so that is why it's different. So for me, it's 18.5, and I have that here. This is my waist point, okay, or waistline. And the next thing I'm going to be marking is my hip line. Now, you guys take note of something. This pattern I'm creating is going to have a hip line. The other one I created, the previous one I created, is just a very brief short pattern. And I just want you guys to understand the basics, okay? Basic pattern or basic bodice with waist that alone. This pattern here is going to have the waist and the bust that, and it has the hip line, okay? So my hip line from my shoulder is 24 inches, and I'm marking this down. Take note. This is like the full basic pattern, okay? So in case you don't even understand the previous one, there's no way you don't understand the previous one. But yeah, you're going to understand this one. And now we are done with the vertical measurements, okay? These are the vertical measurements that we need on the patterns to create whatever I want to create. Now, we're going to come back to dividing this measurement by 4, or the round measurement of it. The bust, round bust, the under bust, the round under bust, like that. We're going to divide them by 4. But before then, let's create the neck depth. So yeah, the neck depth on my pattern, that's how deep my neckline will be on this pattern. I'm using 3 inches. And I would say that is standard, but you can use 4, you can use 3.5, you can use, yeah, that's it. Okay, so I'm using 3 inches as my neck depth. Now connect the neck depth to the neck width using a curve ruler. And I'll also help you label it out to know that this is the neck depth. Now, once I tackle that, the next thing I'm going to be tackling is my armhole. Okay, so I'm going to be working on the armhole, and to do this, I have to find out what my middle point on the armhole is. because I want to create the curve, okay, the actual curve for my armhole. So from my slope to my armhole depth, I have 8 inches. To get my middle point, all I have to do is fold my tape into 2 like this. This is 8. Press this point, and here is my middle point. Okay, now for the curve to really be pronounced, for me to get that curve that I actually want, I will go in from the middle point by 0.75, and then I'll make sure that that 0.75 is sitting straight from that middle line. Okay, it does not go any point below or upper, straight from it. Okay, and I have my middle point, and I have my 0.75. Okay, that's it. So before I create the armhole, I have to divide my round bust, my round breast. I have to divide that measurement by 4 and mark this down on the armhole line, the armhole depth. My round bust divided by 4 is 9, and I'm going in from 9 inches. See, 9 inches. So now I have this point here. I'll connect this to this and here to here. Okay, watch. If you're creating pattern for the first time, you'll be really find this very easy to create because it's simple though. You have to just pay attention. So now I have here to here and now here to here. I'm using a straight marker, a straight ruler. Okay, and now I have my armhole. So this is done. The next thing we're going to do is create the waist dart before we divide measurements by 4. And to create my waist dart, I need to mark my nipple to nipple measurement, okay, which is the apex. My nipple to nipple measurement is 8 inches. I will divide that number by 2 because again we're marking on the one side of the pattern, so I have to divide by 2. So when I open up my pattern, I get 2 sides, which is 4 here, 4 here. Okay, I hope you understand. So 8 divided by 2 gives you 4. That's for my own nipple to nipple. I'll mark that here on the bust line. I'll mark that here on the under bust line, on the waist, and on the hip, on all points. Okay, so mark 4 inches here. I'll mark 4 inches here. I'll mark 4 inches here, and then I'll mark 4 inches here on the hip. Now I have this. I will connect, and I will explain something. I'm going to connecting the waist to the under bust first before I connect the rest, and I'll tell you guys why. Because I don't want a sharp edge when I create my darts, so I will eliminate that by coming down by 1 inch from the bust. Okay, this is the apex, right? The 4 inches I marked, that's my nipple to nipple, this on the bust. So because I don't want that sharp edge when I create the dart, I don't want it to be created from this place because it's going to cause like sharp edges when we create the dart. When we're trying to sew in the dart, we're going to be having like a pointy edge here. To avoid that, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. Okay, now see that my 1 inch is coming down exactly below this point. Okay, and now connect it to this point. Make sure that is what you're doing. Oh, sorry. This is it here, 1 inch. Okay, let me indicate that so that nobody gets confused. So this is 1 inch down. I'm done with this. Now coming to the hip, I want my dart to stop 2 inches before the hip point. That means on the apex line, I don't want my dart to get to my hip. I want it to come and stop like 2 inches before the hip measurement. So I'll mark 2 inches upwards. Make sure it is sitting on the same straight line like we talked about here, the same straight line. Okay, so this is it. I'm going to confirm if I have 4 inches from the center front, okay? So that it all aligns. See, it's 4 inches. Confirm. I'm just going to connect this to the rest like this. And this is where we'll be creating the darts that we're going to be creating. Now, the first dart that I learned as a beginner when I was learning how to sew was the waist dart. And when you are trying to apply the waist dart to the pattern, where do you mark the dart? The waist, because it's a waist dart. Okay, so the dart already implies itself, like the name already implies what we're about to do. The waist dart is taken on the waist. So what I'll be doing now on the waist is I'll be marking 1 inch towards the side and 1 inch towards the center front. Remember, this is the center front and this is the side. Okay, this is side. This is going to be the side and this is the center front. So I'll be marking 1 inch towards the side and 1 inch towards the side. Okay, this is me taking my darts. I would like to use a black pen to take the darts. So a black marker to take the darts so that you guys get to see that it is different from the pattern. So this is the darts here, 1 inch here, 1 inch here, 1 inch. Okay, so this is my 1 inch, 1 inch, and what we're going to do is we're going to marry this 1 inch all together. Okay, so what I mean is I'm going to be connecting this point to this point and this point to this point, making them husband, wives, and yeah, husband and wives. This is the husband and this is the wives. So I'll connect this point to this point here, the 1 inch down, also the 1 inch down to this point here. Make sure you hold your ruler firm. Okay, I almost made a mistake here. And now, because my dart is going to be ending here, I'm going to connect this point to this point and this point to this point. Okay, this is the point where my dart ends. So now this is the dart. Okay, this is the waist dart, and that was very easy to create. Let me just write it here: waist dart. So we're done with the waist dart. The next thing we're going to do now is divide all measurements by 4. Okay, now the bust by 4, the underbust by 4, the waist by 4, the hip by 4. Now you should know these things are in step. Once you mark your vertical measurement, you mark your dart. Now you can divide all measurements by 4. So always remember that. Now, starting with the bust, I'm going to divide my round bust by 4. My round bust is 36. Divided by 4 gives you 9. I have 9 here when I marked on the armhole, but I'll still mark it again so you know exactly what I'm doing. So connect. Everything you're marking, be connecting. Just be connecting and be going, okay? Mark as you go. The next thing I'll be dividing by 4 is my underbust. Now my underbust is 32. Divided by 4 gives you 8. Look at that. Look at this. Look at this. I have a dart here. So when I mark my 8, I'm going to replace this dart. It is important you replace your dart, okay? So this is 8. Let me replace my dart, okay? Confirm what you have on your dart on the underbust and replace that, okay? Very necessary, guys. This is very important. This part here, if you don't learn anything, learn this one. When you take your dart, replace it wherever it is that you feel like it is, you have taken a dart and the dart is showing on that part. Just replace it back, okay? Confirm what you have there and replace. I will move to my waist. I'll divide my round waist by 4 and I'll replace my dart. My round waist is 7.5. 30 divided by 4 gives you 7.5. and I have 2 inches of that here. I'll replace 2 inches here back, and then I'll connect. The next is my round hip. I'll divide my round hip by 4, and I'm going to mark it on the hip line, and there is no dart to be replaced, so we are good. Okay, I am good, you're good. So connect, and this is basically it. Okay, Asmina, let me see. This part here is supposed to be on curve. Oh, the curve is not curving. Where's my other curve ruler? Let me just use straight ruler. They're supposed to have like a curve because it's the hip, but let's just go with a straight ruler because I don't have that ruler. Okay, this is it. Okay, now we have everything done. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to determine the bust dart. Very simple, okay? To create your bust dart, like I said, is like the easiest thing because all you have to do is find out the difference between your front waistline and your back waistline. Now, my front waistline is 18 inches. My back waistline is 16 inches, 16.5, sorry. So I'll say 18 inches minus 16.5, and that gives me the amount of that I'll be marking down from my bust. Okay, so this minus this 18 minus 16 gives me 1.5 inch. So 1.5 inch is what I'm marking as my bust dart. How did I do this? Um, I found out what my front waistline is, which is 18 inches, and then what my back waistline is, which is 16.5. Now I'm going to minus my front waistline from my back waistline, which is 18 minus 16.5 gives you 1.5 inch. And what I will do now is I'll come over to my bust point. I'll place my tape on this point here and I'll mark 1.5 inch down from it. Okay, for this part I'll use my green marker because this is the bust dart and I want you to know that it is different from the waist dart. So I'm going to be marking 1.5 inch here. So now that I have my 1.5 inch here, what I need to do is connect this point to this point here. This is the apex, the nipple to nipple on the bust. Okay, I'm just going to connect this line to this line. So this is my bust dart. Another thing you need to know is when you create your bust dart, it is always very necessary for you to through it, because now that you've taken this, there is a shortage of fabric that is going to happen when you sew it. Okay, so it's very necessary for you to through it. Okay, it's very necessary for you to through it. Okay, so to do that, so what I'll do is I'm going to fold this point, this bust dart here. I'm going to fold it to touch the bust line here. Okay, just watch what I'm doing. It's not magic. I'm holding from the bust here, and I'm just going to fold this to touch this line here. So now this is what is happening. When I do that, you can see that there is not aligning. Okay, I'm just going to align it now. It is not aligning. To be able to do this simply, normally you just open up this dart, but yeah, let's not do that. I don't want to tamper with this pattern. It's very important to me. So I'm just going to through this right now and aligning. I'm just going to align it. Let me align with my green marker. So what I'll just do is connect this back to the armhole so that it looks the same, okay? I'm just going to connect it upwards. And this is what I have, right? So I'll open it back and you can see that something is happening. It's still not connecting to this. So what I will do now is I'm just going to find the middle point between this 1.5 that I've created here. Already the middle point is showing here, but let me just still go ahead and mark it, okay? So I'll place my tape on the bust and go down to the 1.5. This is the 1.5. Fold my tape into two and get the middle point. This is the middle point here, okay? So I will go out by probably, let me just use 1/4 inch. I'll just go out from there by 1/4 inch, okay? Then I'll connect this to this, and then this to this, okay? Just trying to make sure everything is in alignment, okay? That's it, I'm done. So when I put this, it aligns. Are you seeing? So are you seeing? This is what I'm going to be sewing in. Are you seeing? It aligns, like I get back my measurements, okay? So see, we're done. So at this point, I'll go ahead and cut out my pattern. This pattern has no allowance, so you can add the allowance when you are cutting on your fabric or when you're trying to transfer it into another pattern. You can use this to, you know, create a new pattern, like just duplicate on another pattern, and on that pattern now you can now add your allowance round. Like when you're adding allowance as a beginner, always make sure you add the allowance round, neckline, shoulder. If it's 1/2 inch you're using, go like that on all points. Add your 1/2 inch, and yeah, you can still go ahead to add more than 1/2 inch in case you are looking for like enough sewing allowance. You can add 1 inch, 1.5. It's up to you. But then on only this, on this part here, the neck, the armhole, the shoulder, it's always safe for you to use 1/2 inch or 0.5, and make sure you sew this in while you're sewing in your fabric, okay? You sew the allowance in. If you're making a fitted outfit, creating this dart means that you want your outfits to be fitted and a 3D. So you make sure that any allowance you're adding, you're sewing that's right in, okay? So you get your fitted outfit, okay? So let me label this out as the bust dart, and I'll cut out my pattern so I can create my back pattern. The back is very simple. Once you're able to understand the front, trust me girl, the back is simple, okay? So this is the front pattern, and let's go ahead and create the back pattern. Okay, so this is the back pattern, and I have to explain some few things before we move forward. Now, this line here, demarcating the main pattern and the zip, is 1.5 inch in, okay? I marked 1.5 inch here, 1.5 inch in, and created a line to demarcate the zip from the main pattern. Now this line here is the center back, okay? Remember in the front pattern we had the center front. This line here is the center back, and I'm going to indicate that center back, okay? This line. So all the measurements we're going to be marking on the horizontal points is going to start from this line. This is just the zip, okay? So make sure you have your zip lined before your center back, because your back has, most times you create zip for your back pattern, okay? And Now that you know that, I'm going to explain the next things, which are these things you're seeing. Now, this here is my neck width, which is 3.5. The same neck width we used for the front pattern. Now, that is something about the neck width. The neck width of the front and the back pattern is always the same. Please do not forget that, okay? The neck width for the front and the back is always the same. Now, I have my 1 inch slope here, shoulder measurement, then slope down. And I have my armhole depth, just the same way we divided the round armhole by 2 and marked on the front. Now this is the other half remaining 8. I marked it down from the slope. So this is my armhole depth, okay? The next point you're seeing here is my bust point. And I have my under bust point here, and I have my back waist line. Remember I said my front waistline and my back waistline is totally different, because on the front I have my bust, I have my breast. So that is making my front and my back waistline different. So my front waistline is 18, my back waistline is 16.5. Please go ahead and indicate yours. Okay, see, 16.5. Okay, this is how we were able to create the bust that on the front pattern, the difference. Okay, so now that I have this, the front, or sorry, the back waistline, the next thing I need to do is mark the hip point. Okay, I need to mark the hip point of my back pattern, and to do this I have to calculate what I have from the front waistline to my hip there. Let me just bring the pattern and do it. The hip line I'll be marking on my back. I'm going to come to my front. This is my front waistline 18, and this is my hip, right? I'm going to place my tape on the front waistline and calculate what I have to the hip. You can see I have 6 inches. So this is my front waistline and this is my hip. So from my waistline on the front to the hip, I have 6 inches on the front pattern. So I'm going to mark 6 inches down from the back waistline. Okay, I'll indicate my hip line by marking 6 inches down. Okay, and now I'll keep my front pattern aside, and this is my hip line for my back. Okay, now why we did all these things is for the fact that when we sew this pattern on the fabric, for the both of the patterns to align, for the back side and the front side, that's this side to align, because this is the side we are going to be joining to the front, for it to align. Okay, so that is why we're doing all these things. So this is my hip. I'm going to indicate it here, hip. And yeah, now let's go ahead and start adjusting the pattern. Now to do this, to continue creating the back pattern, we need to mark the depth, the neck depth for the back. And the neck depth I'll be using for my back pattern is 1 inch. Okay, this is 1 inch. I'll connect the neck depth to the width. Remember, this is the center back line, this pink line. Okay, connect it to the width using your curve. Okay, that is my depth. Okay, depth, this is my depth neckline. And the next thing I'm going to do is on the armhole, I'm going to work on my armhole. And to do this, exactly what we did on the front pattern, you place your tape from the slope to the depth, you fold into 2, find out the middle point, mark it. This is my middle point. And on the middle point, I'll be going in by 0.5. So I'll mark 0.5 in. Okay. And I'll divide my round bust by 4 and mark this on the armhole line, just the same way we did on the front. Okay. So if you understood the front, this back should be easy peasy for you. Okay. Because we're actually just doing almost the same thing, just few changes, and those changes are not even serious. So you connect the middle point 0.7 and 0.5 to this point and here to this place. Armhole done. So now we have the armhole. The next thing I'm going to do is divide my nipple to nipple by 2 and mark it down on the bust line, the under bust line, the waistline, and the hip line. Okay, just the same way we did on the front. My nipple to nipple divided by 2 gives you 4. So I have 4 here. I have 4 here. Did you get 4, 4? Just the same way we did on the front. Okay, let me not keep, I'll keep doing it. I'll keep hammering on it so it sticks to your head. It has to stick by fire, by force. It has to stick. So I'll connect all with a straight line. I'll come up by 2 inches the same way we did on the front pattern. Come up by 2 inches, make sure it's straight, and then connect it. Confirm if it's still 4 I have here. Okay, this is 4 here. And then I'll connect. If you're paying attention, you see that we're repeating steps. Now the back that always starts from the chest line or above your bust, okay, because there's no bust on the back, there is no breast, but there is the bone for the bust showing at the back, okay, the bone, that bone. So the dart starts like on top of the bust line. We're going to extend the armhole line in, okay, straight line, make sure your ruler is straight. Extending the armhole line in, and what we're going to do now is take this line up to the armhole. Okay, now it is the waist dart that we're taking on the back pattern. You can never take the bust dart on the back pattern, okay? There is no breast for you to create a 3D, so we're taking only the waist dart, and to do that we have to mark the waist dart on the waist point, okay? And I'm going to be marking a total of 1 inch on each side of the bust, just the same way we did for the front. I'll mark 1 inch here and 1 inch here. You can actually use half an inch. You don't have to take what I'm taking. You can use half an inch, not 1 inch, okay? So you can actually do 1 inch or half an inch on your bust, okay? So this is my 1 inch, 1 inch. I'll connect it to this point, connect it to this point. Exactly what we did on the front, you can see. Repeating steps. And what I'll do is I'll mark 0.5 inch down from that chest line. I'll just mark 0.5 inch down, okay? And now I'll connect this to the waist dart. C'est fini, we are done. But this is the waist dart, okay? Very simple. My guys, we are done. The next thing or the last thing we need to do is divide measurements by 4, all measurements, okay, and mark it down on their points. And the first we're going to be doing is the bust. Of course, we're going to divide the round bust by 4 and mark this on the bust line. Remember that you have a dart on the bust now. This is not the front. There is a dart here on the bust. We have to replace. So I will be replacing mine, okay? And then I'll connect it up to the armhole. So practically whatever sits on the bust sits on the armhole. Yoruba person. Whatever sits on the bust sits on the armhole, okay? So yeah, I just took it up like this. I took it to this point. And then I'll move on to my underbust. I'll divide my round underbust by 4 and mark it down on the underbust line. All the measurement I'm marking is from the center back. Ignore this, okay? This is the zip. We're going to adjust it later. Ignore and mark from this line in. So my underbust divided by 4 gives you 8. I have a dart to replace. So I will confirm 1.1 1/4. I'll replace 1 1/4 and I'll connect. Okay, this is so sweet. Creating this timber is very sweet. So I'll divide my round waist by 4 and I'll mark it on my waistline. And then I'll replace my dart, darlings. Replace your dart. 2 inches, replace 2 inches and connect. Okay. Now there is no dart on the hip, so I'll just divide my round hip by 4 and mark that. And c'est fini, sweethearts, we are done. We just adjust our zip, and that is it. Okay, that is it. You can go sleep or go do whatever you want to do or start creating what you want to create, because we are done, mommy. So right now I'm just going to go ahead and adjust my zip. So for the zip, let me extend the neckline. So this is the neckline. For the zip, so this is the beginning of everything. When we're cutting, this is where we start from. Now for the zip, I have 1.5 inch here, right? Every hair, all hair like this is 1.5. From this pink line out is 1.5. Now on the shoulder or on the neckline here, I'm going to leave that 1.5 inch. I'm not going to tamper with it. But then I'll move to my waistline. I'm going to be marking 1 inch from the pink line out, okay? I'll mark 1 inch. Okay, and then I'll connect the 1 inch to this 1.5 here. And I have to use my straight ruler, the longest one, because the connection is long. Okay, this one is not wireless. This one has to be, it has to be Bluetooth. Okay, so connected to the shoulder, this is 1 inch. Let me tell you, let me write it down. This is 1. Okay. On the hip, I'm going to leave the 1.5. So I'll connect this 1 inch to the 1.5 here, assuming this is 1.5. I'm not going to tamper with it. So this is it. Yeah, this is my zip. So let me extend this line out. At this point, my lovelies, you should be liking this video right now, okay? If you're able to understand 1 or 2 things on this pattern creating, please go ahead and like this video, because Charlie, we are done. Okay, the only thing left for you to do is like this video right now and share this video on all your sewing platform that you are involved with, or you are in. You get me? Share this video, comment, ask your questions, anything you want, just let me know in the comment section. I got you, girl. I'm here for you. I'm here for others. I really enjoy the whole process. Okay, so do not forget that if you want to use this pattern, you need to add the allowances. You can add 1/2 inch on the neckline, the shoulder, the armhole, but on this part here, you'll be adding more allowances, like maybe 1 inch, but make sure you sew this in, okay? Because creating a pattern with that means that you want your outfits to be fitted, or in a way kind of huggy, like, fitted. And it means you should always sew in all the allowances you have, okay? Sew them in, okay? Do not forget that. Now I'm just going to go ahead and cut. So this, I have so much things here. So this is the front, this is the back. You can see that they're not equal. The front is longer, right? See, the front pattern is longer. Let me bring the back in front so you see. So the neck width, you can see that the neck width is the same. It matches, right? That is why we use 3.5. See, the armhole is the same, right? But one is more inside than the other. This one is more in. That is what the front pattern is meant for, to go in because of your bust. It aligns, the armhole aligns, but the length does not align. You can see that the front is actually longer than the back. Now that is why we have the bust dart. So once I fold in my bust dart, the length becomes equal, okay? See, now my bust dart is folded in, the length becomes equal. So that is why we have the bust dart, okay? And see how the length is equal. that is how your pattern should be. Okay, so make sure you have this, all this I've done and all this I've said in check. Okay, I love you guys so much. I'll be tackling more things on pattern because I want you to understand the basic rules of pattern. Once you're able to understand this is something I just recently found out, that once you're able to understand pattern, you can manipulate it. Like if you watched my make made top, you could see that it is perfect. It's created to perfection. It was of I was able to take my time to understand this process, and it helped me a lot. So I want it to help you too. So you can be manipulating and be creating your own style. Okay. I love you guys so much. I'm saying this once more. I love you guys so much. Love and light to you wherever you are. I'll be seeing you guys on my next video. Bye from me.